I opened my inbox and there it was, an email saying my ranch had been reserved for 150 real estate agents. Reserved. As if I'd signed a contract I'd never even seen. 10 minutes later, GPS apps were already guiding strangers straight to my locked gate, and I swear my coffee cup rattled in my hand from the sheer audacity of it. It started like any other morning. I was at the kitchen window with coffee still too hot to sip, watching the cattle stir out in the pasture when I spotted something that didn't belong. A bright yellow arrow sign planted at the edge of the public road pointing directly at my property like it owned the place. I stepped outside and realized it wasn't just one sign, there was a whole breadcrumb trail of arrows, each reading Realtor Caravan 150, leading straight to my front gate. My neighbor Rick strolled over with that half smile he gets when he knows trouble's brewing. "You hosting a party today, Jake?" he asked, gesturing at the signs. I shook my head. "First I'm hearing of it, Rick. First I'm hearing of any of this." He pulled out his phone and started snapping pictures. "Might want to document this before it gets interesting." Smart man, that Rick. That's when the email landed. Subject line, Ranch Reservation Confirmation. At the top, clear as daylight, was the name Denise Caldwell, the HOA president from the subdivision next door. The woman has always strutted around like she runs more than her little community. But this was on another level. The email was blunt. The HOA had reserved my ranch for their caravan event, 150 agents expected tomorrow between 2 and 3 p.m. Attached was a map showing the GPS pin for check-in planted smack on my gate coordinates. It was so brazen it almost impressed me, almost. Within the hour, a woman in heels pulled up on the public road, confused as hell, phone in hand. She looked at the app, then at my gate, then back at me. "It says check-in is here," she explained, bewildered. I told her plainly, "This is a private ranch, not an event venue." She blinked, like that possibility had never occurred to her. When she left, Rick leaned over and said, "You've got about 90 minutes before this gets really interesting." He wasn't wrong. By noon, they'd set up traffic cones along the road, shoulder a check-in table under a pop-up tent, even folding chairs. Then a vendor truck rolled up clipboard in hand and without even looking at me started inspecting the lock on my gate. "HOA cleared this job," he muttered. "Here to ensure access for the caravan." That was the moment it hit me. They genuinely believed the HOA had authority over my property. I stopped him cold. "This is private land, not community property," I said. He looked confused, flipped through his paperwork and stammered, "But the HOA gave us the work order." Rick popped up at my side, asking for the certificate of insurance. Sure enough, the paperwork didn't list me, no additional insured nothing. "Then you're not covered here," I told him. The poor guy paled, realizing he'd been dragged into a mess he couldn't legally touch. Phones were already out filming. He packed up and left, but by then more realtors were gathering, muttering about why the lock was still on. I felt the walls closing in. It wasn't just neighbors being nosy anymore. This was deliberate. Organized. Someone had printed signs, programmed GPS, hired vendors, all built on the assumption my ranch was theirs to use. I remember standing at my kitchen counter, hands on either side of my coffee mug, wondering if maybe I was the unreasonable one. Maybe I should just let them use the land for a couple hours, keep the peace, avoid the fight. My family was stressed. Rick was worried for me, and every part of this screamed I'd lose if I pushed back. For a minute I honestly thought about caving. But then Rick brought over new photos, emails traced back to the HOA servers pretending to be county approval. And Mark Bradley, the utility guy, showed up with paperwork proving their backup route was nothing but a restricted easement. That was the jolt I needed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was fraud. And fraud meant it was time to fight. The next day my gate became ground zero. Realtors piled up along the roadside, security guards waved radios, and unbelievably a locksmith arrived with orders to cut my lock. Before he could even touch it, I demanded to see owner authorization. Of course there was none. Rick pointed out the missing insurance coverage. The locksmith hesitated, looked at the crowd of phones, pointed at him, and finally backed away. "No signature, no coverage, no job," he said, and packed up. That's when Denise Caldwell herself showed up HOA logos on her car voice all sugar until she realized the sheriff's deputy was already there. She tried explaining about community access and positive neighbor relations, but the deputy cut her off. "Ma'am, private property is private property. HOA rules don't apply here." Live streaming agents caught every stammer and excuse. Then came the smoking gun. Rick pulled up the county GIS map right there in front of everyone, showing the red dotted line of a proposed easement running straight to my gate status under review, not approved. Denise had built an entire event on a draft line pretending it was law. Ellen Carter from the county arrived, waving proof. The so-called county emails came from HOA servers, not government systems. Forgery, plain and simple. The crowd turned. Realtors muttered, "She lied to us." The MLS system itself flagged the event location as invalid, wiping out their attendance credits in real time. Phones buzzed with cancellations. You could feel the air leave the HOA's balloon. Denise's confidence drained out of her face, while the deputy stacked paperwork, unpermitted encroachments, fake approvals, invalid insurance, GPS fraud. It wasn't just a fiasco anymore. It was a public dismantling of her authority. One by one, the cones and folding chairs disappeared, packed back into vans. The crowd dispersed, grumbling about wasted hours. Denise tried one last time, asking me if more insurance would make me comfortable. I just pointed at the sign I'd hung the day before "No event," without owner's written permission. That was the end of it. The deputy handed me a copy of the report thick with evidence. Denise handed me a written apology, stiff and formal, admitting they'd organized a major event around private property they never had the right to use. Cameras caught it all, neighbors whispered, and her HOA board suspended her from event planning for a year. I leaned against my gate as the sun dipped low, the ranch finally quiet again. The same gate they tried to turn into a red carpet entrance now stood locked, steady, unbothered. Denise walked away, humiliated, her clipboard hanging like a broken shield. And me, I just listened to the silence of my land reclaiming itself, the cattle shifting in the pasture, the last scrap of yellow signage blowing down the road. Because in the end, it was simple private property isn't a stage for someone else's show.